Tottenham TV. The transfer window hasn't even opened yet, and we are getting bombers left, right, and centre today. An extensive Tottenham update to bring you, but we're going to start off with the leading news of the day, the bomber that we got from David Ornstein. Crystal Palace have reached an agreement with Tottenham over a deal to sign Brennan Johnson, subject to the 24-year-old accepting the move. Fee approaching 35 million in place, and clubs keen to proceed, with Tottenham winger still to decide. However, there are more suitors in for Brennan Johnson as well, so it could spark a bit of a bidding war. Alistair Gold says that Spurs have agreed a fee of around 35 million to sell Brennan Johnson. The player is yet to decide his destination, with other clubs interested. And if Johnson does his part, it will be the third year in a row Spurs have sold their top goal scorer from the previous season. And they bought Brennan Johnson for 47.5 million 2 years ago. Sammy Mockbell says that Brennan Johnson is to hold talks over his future in the next 48 hours after Crystal Palace have agreed a 35 million fee to sign Tottenham's attacker. Deal clinched on Monday. Ben Jacobs says that Palace have agreed the fee, and he says that Bournemouth and Everton are among the suitors for Brennan Johnson. Ed Aaron says that Palace are facing strong competition from Bournemouth to sign Brennan Johnson. It's expected they'll match Palace's offer as they look to replace Antoine Semenyo. And finally, Fabrizio Romano says that the agreement in principle has been reached between Palace and Tottenham. Bournemouth are ready to pay the same, while Sunderland and Everton have also called in the last 24 hours. Johnson will now decide, but he is expected to leave during this January transfer window. So big news coming out of Tottenham. We have heard over the last couple of days, this is, a likely one to happen. But what's your initial thoughts on it?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, because all the talk ever since this first got broken a few weeks ago, it's kind of sounded like this is likely to happen and it's suited for all parties. I'm pretty open. I've been pretty open to the fact that we can let go of Brennan, because, as I've said, he is definitely a limited player and he's definitely a player who's upgradable. So I'm not against, in theory, Tottenham letting go of Brennan Johnson, even for a reduced fee, just to get him off the books and upgrade him. But we have to make sure that we've got a player lined up. The problem is, doing it at the beginning of the window, I understand Palace and Bournemouth, with Bournemouth losing Semenyo, Palace, obviously, injury crisis, and Sarr being at AFCON, they're probably desperate to get him in right now because they need him. And Palace, their form is tanking. Bournemouth are on a horrible run of form as well. So they need all the reinforcements they can get. So I get that. And I get that they're desperate to kind of get him in, and maybe we're desperate to get some money in right now, so that we can move on to our other targets. The problem is we've got a lot of games coming up, so if we're getting rid of him now, we've got Champions League games coming up as well. We've got how many games in the next?
We've got 8 games in January.
For the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, 4 games.
4 games. But they're coming very thick and fast, these games at the moment. So obviously he's not gone yet. I'm assuming he's going to be available for tomorrow, but it depends when we let him go and if we're going to have someone lined up. Also, when it comes from a squad planning point of view, selling a right winger right now, when it's the left wing we need to concentrate on, is a bit peculiar. Now I have had some suggestions. Are we selling Brennan, with the thought of maybe Decky coming into that role when he's fit, and maybe he fits in the competition for right wing with Kudus, and then we don't have to sign a replacement for Brennan on the right side and just concentrate on filling that space with a left winger.
So we're going to go with Kudus on the right every single game of January, because I don't think Kulusevski is going to be at the right fitness levels to play a part in January.
Well, he hasn't gone yet, has he, Brennan? But we have to see when he leaves. But yeah, essentially, I don't see how we're not going to sign any, unless you're expecting us to sign someone this week, if he's gone this week, which maybe will happen, but I don't really see us being seriously linked to many players. Then we'll see.
It's a good point. Look, Odebear can play there. He plays there for the under-21s at times as well.
Yeah,
so
I'm not a massive fan of him there, but he can play there.
But he's going to be the next in line to play right wing now, if Brennan Johnson is to go. But look, it does. If Spurs have already agreed a fee to sell Johnson, I think he's played his last game for Spurs, and ironically, it was against Palace a couple of days ago. So, look, I think we're just waiting on Johnson to decide which club he wants to go to. I think they're going to accept any fee of 35 million plus, and I think by the end of the first week of January he'll be gone. But I don't think he'll play before then.
I guess it depends. Obviously, you don't want to risk a big injury, so that's obviously what their mindset's in. Obviously, Johnson apparently has to decide. There's now a few clubs involved with as we heard, Sunderland, Bournemouth, Everton. So if that's going to drag on, then he is going to be available.
It's a bit peculiar, though, because they said the deal was agreed on Monday. Obviously, we played Palace on Sunday. So the deal was agreed, and he played against Palace after the deal was actually agreed.
That's why Fabio was there. Well, the deal was agreed on Monday.
That's what they said, yeah.
Yeah, we played them on Sunday.
Yeah.
So it was before.
Oh, yesterday. I thought they meant the previous Monday.
Yeah.
No, I forgot it was Tuesday today.
Yeah, Tuesday today.
So I guess that's why Fabio was there then.
Yeah, it must have been.
So Fabio's still working then?
Exactly. He's still working his magic. If what's it called? If these other clubs are going to be involved though, and if there's going to be a bidding war, and he's going to have to decide, I don't think Tottenham are going to not make him available for selection while that's going on. But it kind of depends. If he's made a decision, let's say he says today, he turns around and says, look, I want to go Palace, then I agree, he's probably not going to be available for tomorrow. But if he's still umming and ahhing, I don't see why he wouldn't be available. Because maybe he's not sure if he definitely wants to leave, but it seems as though that's definitely going to happen.
You see it all the time, don't you? When players are heavily linked and bids have been accepted, teams take them out the firing line, don't they?
It happens more often than not, yeah.
And I think this one will probably be another case of that. Obviously, we'll see what happens when we play Brentford in 2 days' time.
I guess Frank will say soon.
Yeah, I don't even know if Frank's going to mention anything. He's doing a press conference now. He's probably going to say...
Oh, he'll ask him people ask him, is he available for selection?
Yeah.
And he'll probably answer that,
And he'll probably just say, yeah, he's a Spurs player now. And then maybe they'll put him on the bench and not bring him on. Or maybe he just won't be in the squad anyway, even if Frank does say he's available for selection.
Well, he might say he's not in the squad and he's not available. He might say that.
He might say that.
So we'll see. I think we'll learn a bit from what he says. I don't think he's going to confirm whether he's leaving or where he's going, but he might confirm whether he's available for selection tomorrow or not. It's sad because obviously we got a lot of good memories surrounding Brennan and the Europa League final winning goal. He's obviously going to be etched in our memory and our history forever. Even players like Alan Nilsson, Jonathan Woodgate, these kind of level players. Even though you can argue they weren't the best players to ever play for us, but they're always going to be in our history, and Brennan joins that list. And also, given the fact that we are struggling to score goals, it just feels a bit of a shame we're losing one of our highest goal scorers. But I also kind of agree that we do have to be a bit ruthless. If we are going in this new direction with this new board and all this kind of stuff, and we are making big moves, then you do have to make tough decisions. And I don't disagree with making this decision if it leads to a big signing and an upgrade.
Yeah, but it has to be this January.
For sure.
We have to make a big signing this January if we're prepared to let Brennan Johnson go. And with this news coming out now, before the January transfer window even opens, they have to have someone lined up for early in the window as well. Like you say, we've got so many games coming up, but I just can't see that happening. That's the problem. I think the best course of action is to sign someone and then let Brennan Johnson, or at least have the deal lined up so it can be one in, one out very quickly. I just can't see us signing someone that has got the ability or has shown that he can get as many goals as what Brennan Johnson has been able to get for us. I think he's the best finisher at the club. And look, don't get me wrong, I agree with you in what you're saying, that he's upgradable and I wouldn't mind selling him in the perfect world, but we all know full well that Spurs don't live in the perfect world. And we've seen it many a time. We've let big players go and we haven't been able to replace them with the required quality. Obviously, the big players I'm talking about are much better and bigger than Brennan Johnson, granted, but still, you're talking about last season, Sonny, Brennan, Kulu, Maddison, Solanke, all these guys that were able to get big goal contributions for us over double digits last season. And now, what are we left with? Solanke's been out all season. Kulusevski's been out all season. Maddison's been out all season. Son left. Now Brennan Johnson's leaving. Where are these goals going to come from?
It's a great question. Other players are going to step up. Does it lead to more game time with Tell? Can we have to rely on him? At the moment, well, to be honest, it's not like Johnson has been playing that much and scoring. So we haven't been relying on him for goals, but the reality is we haven't been scoring enough goals. So that's where we're at the moment as a team and as a forward line. So I think it's a big call to, agree a deal basically in the lead up to January. I think if you're agreeing a deal for me before the window opens, that tells me that's going to get done very early in the window.
Yeah, of course.
Or maybe even the first or whatever. That you don't agree a deal outside the window and then drag it on, usually anyway, until late on. Look at Semenyo. They're agreeing this outside the window, and that's going to be done pretty quickly, I'm sure. So this is going to be done very quickly. I also, in a way, I think it is a bit of a statement of intent from the board or from whoever the decision makers to say, we're going to take a loss on him. We're not going to drag this out. We've got a figure we're happy with, albeit it's a loss on what we paid for him, but we've got a figure we're comfortable with, and we're going to accept it. We're not going to do what we did, previously. I think we can be rest assured if Daniel Levy was in charge, this probably would have been dragged out, and he wouldn't accept anything less than 40 to 45 million, I would assume. And the fact that we've made the decision quite quickly, and we've set the price at a fairly reasonable price, in my opinion, and that we've accepted the first offer, that tells me that they've got intent to move him out and go for someone who's an upgrade. So I do think that is very intentional, and I in a way that does get me a bit excited, but it's hard to get excited when we've seen how this club has operated in previous seasons now, in terms of signing players and who we're going to sign and all this kind of stuff. So it's hard to know what to think until we know what the consequences of selling him are going to be, and then who we're going to sign and all these kind of things. But in principle, I'm not against selling Brennan, in principle, but in theory and in practice, I think there are a lot of issues could arise with selling Brennan.
Look, it could work out very well for us, but then again, if we don't get someone in, then it's obviously very terrible for us. But
I think if we don't get someone in, it's I don't know why they've made the decision if they're not going to get anyone in. That would be. But
ridiculous. I'm saying they have to have someone lined up.
Yeah.
Like, it can't drag on till the end of the window as well. Like, we've got look, Kid said, we've got so many games in January. It has to be one in, one out very quickly.
But the funny thing is, a lot of teams will delay selling their players until the Champions League is over, and yet we're not one of those. We're happy to let go of players even while the Champions League's still going on, and we've got games to play for.
Yeah, I mean, the Champions League games are right at the end of the month, so it's like a long way to go till then.
I know, but we hear that excuse last year we heard that excuse. Oh, a lot of teams don't want to sell because the Champions League's still going on.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I mean, look, Brennan Johnson, he was actually playing a key role in our Champions League campaign. He was starting a lot of the games and obviously played well in a couple of them as well. But look, like we keep saying, I think it's a good deal in my opinion. On the face of things, it all depends on who we target and who we bring in. And look, I do have the feeling that if we have agreed a deal to sell him, I do think the Spurs have potentially got someone lined up here. That maybe a name hasn't been put out in the press or whatever, but we haven't heard anything, so it's hard to really comment on it.
Yeah, well, we'll go.
They have to have someone lined up.
I think it's a better deal for Palace than Spurs, in my opinion, because I think it's a fair price. I don't think we've got nothing. 35 million is a decent price for someone like Brennan, but also it's our top goal scorer last season. He got 15 goal contributions in his first season. He's still a fairly good age. So I think Palace are getting a good deal here. I think they play similar for Ismaila Sarr, who I think was similar price, and he doesn't get the goal contributions Brennan gets. I think for a guy who can score at this level, to a good level, I think that's a good deal, 35 million, considering the prices that other players are going for.
Yeah, look, I think it suits all parties. It suits Spurs, it suits Palace, it suits Brennan. I think he's going to go to a club where he's going to really suit the way they play as well. So, I mean, the only way it suits Spurs if we bring someone of higher calibre than Brennan Johnson in. And obviously we've been linked to players like Kevin Sade and stuff like that. And if it is Brennan Johnson for Kevin Sade, then I mean, it doesn't excite me too much. I think they're similar calibre of player. I would prefer to stick with Brennan Johnson, to be honest. I think maybe Kevin Sade is a tiny bit better, but I don't think there's much in it. I think they're pretty much the same level of player. So
I also can't imagine us getting Sade for 35. I'd assume we have to pay a bit more than that.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably for Kevin Sade 45, something like that. He's probably worth about that kind of money with the goals that he's scoring at this moment. But look, we'll have to wait and see how it all pans out and progresses. But yeah, look, I am slightly concerned about it, but when you're looking at the bigger picture in terms of squad planning for future seasons and stuff like that, it's probably a good move. But it's just about the immediate kind of impact that it's going to have.
I think it would have made more sense in my mind to do it in the summer, because in the summer there's going to be more options to replace him. You're going to have more options available to you. So to sell him now when there's limited options, we know January is historically a very hard window to get the players that you want and sign the players that you want. So to sell Brennan and relying on us to get the player that we truly want for the long term in that position in his prime to replace Brennan, upgrade on him, it's a big ask. Now they're putting pressure on themselves by doing this. I'm not saying it's wrong to do it, and if they believe they can get the player, then fine. But I'm saying, are they being too much pressure on themselves for no reason? Maybe it is a case of Brennan's desperate to leave, and they think, look, we can get a good deal now. He wants out. There's no point keeping players unhappy, and then we'll just try and work it out. But I'm kind of worried about that is the situation.
That's no way that we should be conducting our business, that we will just work it out. Like, they have to have someone already in the pipeline lined up. Like,
I'm worried that's the situation. I'm worried that, like, we've seen Palace and Bournemouth are desperate to, like, sign him and put the money on the table. We're pretty happy with the money, and we might feel like, are we going to get a better opportunity to get this money right now than two teams who are really desperate? So we're just like, okay, we'll accept this and we'll try and work out a replacement. I'm worried that's the situation. I hope it isn't, but I'm worried that's what's happened.
The thing is, that's probably the way. Well, Spurs would have either done that in previous years, or they would have kept him at the club and waited to sign someone else to let him go. This way of doing it, if there is someone lined up, then that will be a significant part of how kind of we're going to do our squad planning going forward as well. Like, it'll be amazing to see, like, you know, we wake up tomorrow or something happens later today, like Spurs have agreed a fee for someone else, and it's a player that we all want. That will really kind of introduce the new ENIC 2.0, isn't it? Because we've never seen something like that before.
Yeah. So it's a really odd one when it comes to this deal. I've definitely got mixed feelings on it, but it could end up being a fine deal for us, in essence. So it's all about how we react to this and what we've got planned. Basically, the question is this sale part of a bigger plan, or is this an opportunistic sale? If it's an opportunistic one, I've got issues with it. If it's part of a plan to sell them and we've got someone lined up and it's all like part of a process, then I'm all right with it.
It has to be part of a plan. It has to be. It has to be. I'm not letting myself believe anything other than that. I mean, it has to be part of a plan.
It could well not be.
It can't just be an opportunistic sell. We're able to get money in for a player that was our top goal scorer last season, without a plan in place to bring someone else in. That would be crazy talk.
I wouldn't rule it out.
It would just be nuts from this football club if they were to do that, particularly with the place that we are in the league and what we've been showing this season.
Agreed. We had a poll on Twitter, so we asked what people's thoughts are on the deal. Is it a good deal or is it a mistake? 1,089 votes. 74.2% of people said it was a good deal. It is a good deal.
It is a good deal.
And 25.8% say it's a mistake.
I think it is a good deal. But if you just want to talk about none of the kind of situations around it and just talk about the deal in itself, I think it is a good deal. And I think it's a player that, you know, we've both said here is upgradable. So if you get a player out the door that's upgradable, then it's no problem. It's just about you got to upgrade him. That's the whole point.
Yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, we'll see. I just do struggle right now. Like, first of all, like, we've talking about someone like Ndai. He ain't going to be available till later on because he's at AFCON.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sharda we could go for, but is he much of an upgrade? I do think he's a better player and probably offers more than Brennan. But it's not something that's like a massive improvement, but it's probably an improvement. But
it's not an improvement worth doing, if you know what I mean. Like,
I'd rather wait till the summer where you can definitely get better options.
Exactly.
Rather than panic and get Sharda, or not panic, but you know, go and get Sharda. But then again, Frank knows him well. Maybe he can get even more out of Sharda.
If the plan is to go with Odebear as the Brennan replacement and give more minutes to Tell on the left-hand side, I'll be fuming. I'll be absolutely fuming. Because it's something that Spurs would have done before as well, that kind of move. Just kind of promote within. And we did hear a an update yesterday. I can't remember who it was from, saying that, you know, the hopes are with Mikey Moore after his loan move in Rangers, he can come in and stake a claim for a first team spot. And obviously he's a left winger. So that could suggest as well that we might not even sign anyone this January on the winger.
I think the plan is to sign someone. I definitely think that's the plan. I don't know if the plan was always to sell Brennan, or was just it's come up that we've got a few offers and we're thinking, you know what, maybe we should. But I think we're going to try and sign left winger. I think that's definitely the plan. But selling a right winger to sign a left winger doesn't necessarily, to me, scream this was always part of the plan. But we'll see. We'll see what we go for. I just think we're going to struggle, in my opinion, to get what we really want, which is a player in his prime, ready to come in and do what all the fans want right now on the left wing in this January. It's going to be difficult. I'm not saying impossible. I'm just saying it's going to be very difficult. So selling a player who does give goal contributions is a risk. Big risk.
Yeah. And it also begs the question as well, what Spurs are going to do with Matisse Tell, because Frank doesn't seem to rate him. Frank never gives him opportunities.
Yep.
Obviously, he was left out the Champions League squad, then put in with Dom Solanke being injured.
Yeah.
He's got, I would say, in recent weeks, the similar amount of minutes to Brennan Johnson.
Yeah.
So is there a case, if a bid comes in for Tell, would we accept that as well?
Wouldn't be surprised at this point.
So there's another interesting kind of scenario here, because if we do sign a winger in this January transfer window, that leaves, well, it depends if if Kulusevski comes back, let's say, and we want to put him in the Champions League squad, then we need to leave Tell out again. It depends if Kulusevski's fit or not.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of question marks there. But then, you know, we heard December he was going to be fit, and that's kind of dragged on a bit. Yeah, I think Tell could easily be loaned out. At the very least, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, which just would be a shame, because I've kind of liked what I've seen from him in his last few cameos. So I'd like to see a bit more from him and giving him a start on the left or something like that. But for some reason,
he clearly rates Odegaard higher than him.
Either way, give him a chance.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really understand. He's obviously he's choosing Moani off the left, who's not really a winger. Odegaard's getting more opportunities. I'd just like to have seen Tell get more of a chance, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think the plan probably would always been Tell might leave, to be honest, regardless of the Brennan situation, which would make room actually for a left winger anyway. That's what I'd assumed was the plan going into this window anyway. It might not have been, but that's what I thought was going to happen when we heard there was going to be a left winger signing. I thought, okay, probably Tell's going to either be sold or be out on loan. That's probably what's going to happen. But now that Brennan's taken me a bit by surprise, but I don't know, I just get the feeling it's a bit more opportunistic. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of the plans are going ahead of this window. And, you know, as I said, because if it was a summer, I would be a lot less worried. But because it's January, it's just you're leaving yourself short and it's a risk. So, as I said, they're putting pressure on themselves to get things done now.
Well, look, all eyes on Tottenham Hotspur now and see how we can react to it. All eyes on Brennan Johnson to see where he chooses as well, because clubs are coming in for him. Palace, obviously, the deal's agreed with Palace. There are murmurings that Bournemouth, Everton and Sunderland all could match the kind of offer that Crystal Palace have put in. And if it is a choice between Palace, Everton, Bournemouth and Sunderland, where does he go?
I think Palace probably makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Only because they're in Europe, and they're in London. Doesn't have to move. They're probably the best team out of the lot. He could end the season with back-to-back European trophies potentially, so that's something to think about. The only thing you would say is obviously there's a lot of uncertainty there with Glasner, so he could sign and then Glasner could leave, and then all of a sudden it's a different situation, and he might be stuck there, which would obviously not be great. Wages-wise, would they offer the highest wages out of all the lot? Maybe Everton would, I would say.
Potentially even Sunderland.
Maybe Sunderland. So there's a wages component to it. Albeit Brennan probably would get himself over 100 grand a week at Palace anyway. So I don't know if it would be a massive difference. I think the highest paid player at Sunderland is Xhaka at 110. At Palace,
I think at any of those clubs he gets at 100 or close to 100 at least.
At Everton, it's 150 with Pickford, I saw. Idrissa Gueye gets 120. So would you want parity with Idrissa Gueye, probably, you would say? Yeah, I don't think the wages is going to be a massive issue to go five at any of them. I don't think it's going to be the deal maker. Put it that way.
No,
I think
he's on 100 at Spurs.
Yeah.
So
Obviously, you want a pay rise.
I don't think he's going to get a significant pay rise. Maybe like 10 grand a week or something like that. But he'll get a pay rise, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think it's about the wages. So I think Palace probably makes the most sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think he just suits the way they play as well.
Yeah.
Like Bournemouth, I don't think so. You know, very heavily possession-based team, and we know Brennan Johnson's limitations there.
I wouldn't say they're possession-based, Bournemouth.
Would you not?
They're very up and down. They're very like. Chaotic.
I think they try to be though.
They've tried to be a bit more this season, but I don't necessarily think he wouldn't suit them.
I think he suits Palace more.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It could be an interesting one for Sunderland. Because, you know, the Sunderland chairman did come out and say, you know, we're this place in the league. I want to make signings to reflect that. Brennan Johnson will be a massive coup for Sunderland.
Yeah, for sure. Would be a big signing.
And I think he'd do really well at Sunderland as well.
And when it comes to Everton, could we, if they are seriously interested, could we tempt them with a cash plus Brennan bid for Ndiaye?
I think we could. Yeah, we definitely could. Why not? Because I think Everton know that they're going to have to sell Ndiaye sooner rather than later. He's going to want to go on to bigger things. And Brennan Johnson could be seen as the kind of like long-term replacement for him. So, yeah, I think Spurs could definitely look to tempt them with that sort of offer.
So maybe this story is not over yet when it comes to where he's going. But it seems as though Palace have definitely stolen ahead of everyone. And they've got the deal agreed. So usually when that happens, I think the player usually acknowledges, like, this is the club that really want me. And, like, this is the club that have, like, pushed the boat out. And they usually go with them. So I'm assuming Palace is going to be the way he ends up. But if these other clubs are coming in from, maybe there'll be a bit of a bidding war. Maybe we haven't heard the last of this.
Yeah, definitely right. But we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But at this moment in time, a deal has been agreed between Tottenham and Crystal Palace for Brennan Johnson, £35 million or close to. And also it's worth noting that Nottingham Forest do have a 10% sell-on fee as well for Brennan Johnson. So not all 35 million will be going to Tottenham Hotspur.